We're joined in studio by former Chairman of Parliament's Legal and Constitutional Committee, Inusah Fuseini, to share some thoughts about the committee so far and their hearing. Thank you so much for your time here
on
Newsdeck. I'm well. I hope you're well too.
I'm good.
And you've been following proceedings so far. What will you say are your views about the hearings so far?
Well, we are in interesting times also. What is happening in Parliament is quite revealing, to some extent troubling. Raises matters of concern, the unity of the police service, whether or not there was a criminal conspiracy by some elements within the police service to torpedo the current IGP, and whether their acts can be related. Now, again, the revealing nature of what is happening is that if the Speaker had not decided to set up a committee to look into the matter, we would have treated it as one of the hearsays, and probably in the public domain, arguments would have been made to suggest that the tape is a fake. But today we all know that a meeting did take place. It took place in the office of Bugrinabu, the former regional chairman of the MPP, and that some persons were part of the meeting. Those persons have come and admitted that they were part of the meeting. Why they met, who recorded, what the intentions were, whether their acts are criminal or not, are matters that the committee will determine.
But so far, these witnesses who have appeared before the committee, what do you make of their testimonies?
Well, for instance, COP Alex Mensah, I felt and thought that his testimony was influenced, or he was consumed by an inordinate partisan ego.
What do you mean by that?
In the sense that a police service is a bureaucracy, it's an institution of state.
Yes.
That being so, they have interests, they have values. Recruitment into the police service is impersonal. It depends on merit and qualification, educational qualification. Now, so a person normally will ascend the heights of the police service based on his output and performance. And for a person to think that the most overriding consideration for the appointment of an IGP should be whether or not he's a party member and whether he can assist a party to continue to stay in office, is subversive, to say the least. It's subversive. Why is it subversive? It's subversive because in our democracy, and particularly in our constitution, sovereignty resides with the people. The government should be for the people. It is we who elect government. And so the election results must be a manifestation of the wishes of the people. And so for anybody to think that if he is IGP, he can subvert the will of the people is criminal.
Well, does this come as a surprise that something of this sort is happening? I mean, for the first time, that something of this nature is happening to the extent that a committee has been set up. Does it raise concern about the institution itself and the happenings going on?
Clearly, like in my introductory statement, it clearly raises matters. They're troubling. Alex Mensah says, as we speak, the police service, which is a bureaucracy, is divided between the MPP and the NDC.
Right.
That should pose a danger to all of us. Mami, see, if you are invited by the police, or if you are to be protected by the police, I spoke about the interests of the police service. They are for law enforcement and maintenance of law and order. They are also to protect property and persons, or persons and property. They have values. They serve with what? Integrity. Now, if these values and interests are compromised, then we are not sure that an establishment like the police service, which is a state establishment, can protect the citizens of the state. And that will lead you to what Francis Fukuyama calls political decay. It means that the institution is decaying, unable to perform the functions for which it has been established to do, largely because of the undermining within the police service.
Well, a committee has been set now, and it's being probed. Do you think it's going to cause any reforms in the service?
First of all, it's going to enable all of us, Ghanaians, to know that something is basically and fundamentally wrong within the police service. It's going to let us know that as a country, we need to take matters of the police service seriously and all other bureaucracies. We need to work together to create the autonomy that these institutions should have to be able to discharge their functions. And people who get into state institutions must know that their loyalty is to the state,
right,
and not to government.
Right.
So I believe that the committee, after the end of its job, will make recommendations.
Well, ahead of that, do you think there should be an independent inquiry into the allegations that are being made, especially in the police service?
There's already an independent inquiry, except that it's not established pursuant to the Constitution. The Committee of Parliament is a committee of Parliament. It's an independent committee of Parliament.
Right.
None of them is working with the police.
Great. But then should IGP be invited?
I don't think so. I mean, there's a conscious, deliberate effort to shift the terms of reference in this matter to the trial of the IGP. It's very conscious and deliberate. It's a red herring that is being pushed.
But he's at the center of this, and a lot of allegations are being made against him. Does he not deserve the right to answer to some of these things?
We might lose focus. I mean, in any undertaking, you must define the remit and parameters of your operations to be able to come out with something concrete. Is the IGP part of the problem?
We do not know. That is why we need him to answer.
What were the terms of the preference of the committee? To investigate the circumstances leading to the production.
But we agree there's a fundamental problem. In your submission earlier, you said these raises troubling concerns in the service. And so for the man at the head of the hierarchy, doesn't this, give the opportunity for us to hear from him, what he has to say about what is happening?
The fear is that it diverts attention from the criminal activities of those who met to the man himself. We might end up turning the man into a villain. We might end up.
Why would that be so? I mean, it's
because a lot of things have been said about him, which obviously ought not to have been said about him. I mean, a police officer comes on set to say publicly to Ghanaians and the world at large that this is the worst IGP we've had in history, and in recent history in the Fourth Republic. Then you wonder, what metrics did he use? What management metrics did he use to come to that conclusion? How many people did he speak to? Is it a pervasive view in the police service? Or is the personal idiosyncratic view of the dissatisfied few within the police service? But we allow that to pass.
Right.
You understand? And many, an IGP comes on, a senior police officer comes on set to say, look, yes, I admit, and I'll say it again, that I do not regret what happened in the Ayawaso West Wagon constituency. Senior police officer. He even ignores the findings of the Commission of Inquiry that was set up and their recommendations. And he says, look, I'm proud that I was part of it. All that, in my view, speaks to a larger problem.
Right.
Those problems could be engineered or fixed by reform, but those reforms cannot be initiated by the Committee of Parliament.
Right, okay. So then how then do we address that particular part of the problem? Getting to hear the side of the IGP, if not at this committee?
Well, so if we want to get to hear the side of the IGP, there's a police council. And this should not be a trial by public opinion. The police council should be interested also in what is happening in Parliament, and then they can invite the IGP to respond to them on what have been raised in Parliament.
But considering the kind of revelations we've heard from the committee, do you think that should be done in camera?
I disagree with the there's no national security implications involved in any of this. It's just like people conspiring to overthrow the state. Then you are trying them for the intention to commit an act of treason or subversion. And they say, well, there are some matters involved that we can reveal to the state. We can't say that openly, publicly.
Indeed.
I mean, I think that it is greatly out of difference to the persons involved, most of them being 7 police officers, that the committee agreed to listen to them in camera. There is nothing, secretive about what they did. There's no state secret involved in this. We're not producing any nuclear weapon, are we? The Attorney General.
I wonder, but the chair of the committee, Atacha, has always repeated that for the sake of, state security, public safety and all that, they don't want to expose certain things because of the kind of allegations or revelations they are making at the committee. And so they are inclined to have an in-camera hearing. The
public safety in this case will be probably protecting those who have appeared before the committee. There's no any threat to public safety by listening to what they have said.
So according to you, we should have all hearings in public?
All the hearings should have been, they should have demanded and encouraged them to speak publicly. For transparency is very important in a democracy.
Right.
All of us must get carried along. The gravity of what they have done, the seriousness of the problems in the police service must be understood and appreciated by all.
All right. So then what then happens, or what would be the impact of an in-camera hearing to this probe?
It will put doubt in our minds. When they do produce their reports,
right,
it will introduce some level of doubt, some suspicion, whether in our minds, whether or not the report adequately captures.
Right.
And these people are free. Those who have appeared before the committee are free to tell the public or their friends what they told the committee. And if they don't find that expressed in the report of the committee, you know what that would mean. That will reduce the integrity of the report that they will produce.
Well, let's move away from the committee and head into the judiciary. Recently, former President Mahama has raised some concerns about the judiciary, about the appointment of judges into the courts on partisan basis, and he feels that the judiciary is in danger. What do you make of his comments?
I share in the view of the former president. As a lawyer, I think that the excessive appointments to the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and the High Court by current president introduces some level of imbalance in orientation of the Supreme Court, in the sense that we have many schools of thought. We have those who are liberals, we have those who are social democrats, we have realists, American realists, and we have contextualists. So, and all these people represent shades of opinion in society. And so when you pack the courts, you deprive a large segment of the society representation in the courts. That is why in the American judicial system, you see there's a conscious, deliberate attempt to continue to maintain a certain level of balance.
Yeah.
And when that balance is distorted, people are able to read, and you see the reversal of the decision in Hyde and Wade, largely because of the imbalance in the in the federal court. Yeah. So a long-standing decision of the court was reversed, largely because conservatives had taken over. Now, and I also say, as a student of science, that it appears to me that His Excellency John Dramani Mohammed's statement has some backing in science, and particularly Newton's third law of motion. It says that to get equilibrium, the reaction to a situation must always be equal to the action. So that you get a what? You said it.
A balance.
A balance. To balance the equation, the reaction must be equal to the action.
Indeed.
So when you say,
Honorable Fuseini, does this bar anybody with maybe a political affiliation but is qualified from being a judge of the court? I mean, nobody is really what would I put it? Is really, objectives.
We say that there's no law that bars and discriminates amongst women. In Ghana, there's no law. But you and I know that cultural practices and traditions and the way gender relates in workplaces has inbuilt discriminatory practices. You know that.
Right. Well, we leave it here. I'm very grateful for your time with us here this morning. And we've been hearing from former Chairman of Parliament's Legal and Constitutional Committee, Inusah Fuseini, this morning on News. We are very grateful for your time.